Single dad CEO ordered a girlfriend for the party, but his daughter said, "Can she stay forever?" Hello everyone. Before we begin today's story, I have a small favor to ask. Please hit subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss our channel's new videos. It's quick, free, and the best way to support us in bringing you more dramatic stories. Your support means the world to us. Where are you watching from? Drop your city or country in the comments below. Thank you very much. Now, let's get into today's story. Have you ever found yourself in a situation where you had to pretend to be someone you're not, just to get by? Well, here's a story about a man who did just that, but the consequences were far beyond what he expected. Let's dive in. If you want to find out what happens next, don't forget to comment below and let us know what you think. And remember, if you're enjoying the story, hit subscribe for more dramatic tales like this one. As Liam stood frozen, his daughter's words echoed in his mind. Can she stay forever? He glanced at Kate, whose face was a mixture of surprise and uncertainty. For a moment, the bustling ballroom seemed to fade away, leaving only the two of them and the weight of Sophia's innocent question hanging in the air. Liam had never been one to get attached easily. His life had been filled with business deals, corporate events, and maintaining the image of a perfect CEO. But now, in front of his daughter, he was faced with something he had never expected, a challenge to his carefully crafted world. He had hired Kate for one night, to play a role, nothing more. But the sincerity in Sophia's voice made him question everything. Could this simple act of kindness, a favor for his daughter, turn into something more? Could he really allow someone like Kate into his life? And more importantly, could he let her become a part of his daughter's world? Kate looked down at Sophia, unsure how to respond. The question had taken her completely by surprise. She had never imagined that, in pretending to be someone else for just one night, she would find herself standing at a crossroads. She had agreed to play the part of Liam's girlfriend, to make his daughter happy, but she had no idea how much it would stir up emotions within her. She had felt a connection to Sophia almost instantly. There was something about the girl's innocence, her vulnerability, that reminded Kate of her own childhood, a time when life was simpler. But now, faced with the possibility of becoming more than just a hired companion, Kate felt a flutter of uncertainty. Could she really be part of their world? Could she stay forever? Sophia's hopeful eyes were too much for her to ignore. She bent down to meet the girl's gaze. "You're a sweet little girl," Kate said softly, her voice warm and genuine. "But I'm not sure I can stay forever." The words felt strange coming from her, and for a moment she regretted saying them. Sophia's face fell slightly, disappointment flickering across her features. Liam noticed the shift in his daughter's expression and felt his heart tug. He had never seen Sophia look at anyone like this before. She had always been a quiet, reserved child, too used to the absence of a mother to let anyone close. But now, with Kate in her life, something was changing. Liam turned to Kate, his expression softening. "You don't have to decide anything right now," he said, his voice steady. But there was a hint of something more beneath his calm exterior. "Let's just enjoy the evening." Kate nodded, unsure of what to say next. She wasn't sure what kind of future she could have with Liam and Sophia. But she knew one thing. This was no longer just a job. She was starting to care. As the night wore on, Liam, Kate, and Sophia spent more time together, and what began as an awkward arrangement slowly transformed into something more genuine. They shared stories, laughter, and even moments of quiet reflection. Sophia, who had been so shy at the start of the evening, was now laughing and playing with Kate as if they had known each other for years. And Liam found himself softening, bit by bit. He had always been so focused on his career, so determined to be the perfect CEO, that he had forgotten how to connect with the people who truly mattered. But tonight, with Kate and Sophia, he felt something he hadn't in a long time. The warmth of family, the comfort of human connection. The night ended with Sophia's big question still lingering in the air. As they said their goodbyes, Liam found himself reluctant to let go of the moment, to let go of Kate. He didn't know what the future held, but he couldn't deny the pull he felt toward her, toward the idea of a real family. And he couldn't ignore the growing sense that Sophia was right. Maybe this wasn't just a temporary arrangement. Maybe, just maybe, Kate could stay forever. The following morning, sunlight spilled through the tall windows of Liam's penthouse. casting soft golden lines across the marble floor. The city below was already awake, but inside, everything felt unusually quiet. Liam stood in the kitchen, coffee mug in hand, lost in thought. The events from the previous night replayed in his mind like an echo. Sophia's question, "Can she stay forever?" had unsettled him more than he wanted to admit. He had told himself that hiring Kate was a one-time arrangement, a harmless favor for his daughter. But now, that simple lie was beginning to unravel. Kate had left an impression that lingered. Her warmth, her sincerity, even the way she had spoken to Sophia, it had all felt real. He had spent years building walls around himself, walls made of work, power, and isolation. But Kate, somehow, had found her way past them without even trying. He took a deep breath and turned when he heard small footsteps approaching. Sophia padded into the kitchen, her messy curls bouncing as she rubbed her eyes. "Good morning, Daddy," she mumbled sleepily. Liam smiled, setting his mug down. "Good morning, sweetheart. Did you sleep well?" She nodded, then looked up at him with those same hopeful eyes that had pierced his heart the night before. "Will Kate come back?" The question caught him off guard. He hesitated for a moment before answering. "I am not sure, honey. She might be busy." Sophia frowned, her little shoulders slumping. "But she said she liked spending time with us." Liam felt his chest tighten. He had no idea how to explain to his daughter that Kate had only been there because he had hired her. The truth was messy, and he didn't want to see disappointment cloud Sophia's face. "We will see," he said softly. "Maybe we can invite her again sometime." Across town, Kate was sitting at the small kitchen table of her modest apartment, stirring a cup of coffee she could barely afford. She had not been able to stop thinking about last night either. The laughter, the warmth in Sophia's eyes, the way Liam had looked at her not as a stranger or an employee, but as someone who belonged. It had been a long time since she had felt that kind of connection. Life had not been kind to her lately. After losing her job months ago, she had taken whatever work she could find, waitressing, freelancing, and odd jobs that paid little but kept her afloat. When Liam's assistant had contacted her for the role of a +1 for a private event, she had accepted without thinking twice. But now, she found herself wondering if pretending to belong had made her realize how lonely she really was. Her phone buzzed suddenly, breaking her thoughts. It was a message from an unknown number. Asterisk. "Good morning, Kate. This is Liam Parker. I wanted to thank you again for helping me last night. Sophia really enjoyed your company." Asterisk. She stared at the screen, her heart skipping. A second message followed. Asterisk. "If you are free this weekend, we would love to have you over for lunch. Sophia keeps asking about you." Asterisk. Kate hesitated. She had promised herself not to get attached, but something about the invitation felt different, like an opportunity she didn't want to turn down. After a few moments, she typed back, Asterisk. "I would love to come." Asterisk. Saturday arrived faster than she expected. When she showed up at Liam's penthouse, dressed simply but neatly, Sophia came running into her arms. "You came!" the girl squealed with delight. Kate laughed, hugging her tightly. Liam stood nearby, watching the scene unfold, his expression softening. For the first time in a long while, the house felt alive again. Lunch was simple, but the conversation flowed easily. They talked about school, art, and even Sophia's dream of one day painting a big mural in the city. Liam found himself laughing a rare, genuine laugh that felt strange but good. Kate listened with patience and warmth, her presence filling the cold spaces of his life. After lunch, Sophia showed Kate her drawings, proudly explaining each one. Liam watched from a distance, realizing that this quiet joy, this easy connection was something money could never buy. As the afternoon light dimmed, he caught himself thinking that maybe, just maybe, Sophia's wish was not so impossible after all. Could Kate stay forever? He did not have the answer yet, but as he watched her smile, he knew one thing for sure he wanted to find out. As the weeks passed, Kate's visits to Liam's penthouse became more frequent. What had started as a simple invitation for lunch had evolved into something much deeper. Sophia's attachment to her grew stronger with each passing day, and Liam found himself looking forward to her presence more than he had ever expected. Kate was no longer just the hired companion she had been when they first met. She had become a part of their lives, a constant that made the house feel like home again. She was warm, genuine, and patient, qualities that Liam had long forgotten how to appreciate. But more than that, she made him feel things he hadn't felt in years. As a CEO, he was used to being in control, to making decisions that shaped his business empire. But when it came to Kate and Sophia, he felt vulnerable, uncertain. He hadn't planned for this. He hadn't planned on his daughter bonding so deeply with Kate, or for himself to feel drawn to her in a way he couldn't explain. One evening, after dinner, Liam and Kate found themselves alone in the living room, the soft glow of the city lights filtering through the windows. Sophia had already gone to bed, her laughter from earlier still echoing in Liam's mind. He watched Kate as she sipped her wine, her eyes thoughtful, yet distant. It was rare for her to stay so quiet, and Liam noticed. "Is everything all right?" he asked, his voice gentle. Kate looked at him, her lips curving into a small smile. "Yeah, just thinking." She set her glass down and leaned back into the couch. "It's just, sometimes I can't believe how much has changed. I came here to pretend, to play a role for one night, and now I feel like I'm becoming part of something real." Liam's chest tightened at her words. He had been avoiding facing the truth of their situation, but hearing it from her made it impossible to ignore. He had invited her into his life for a reason, but the line between what was real and what was a facade had blurred long ago. "I never expected this either," Liam said, his voice low. "But I don't regret it. I don't regret you being here." Kate smiled again, but this time, there was a touch of sadness in her eyes. "I know it's been great with Sophia, and I'm happy I can be a part of her life. But what about you, Liam?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What happens when this whole thing stops being a game and starts being real?" Liam froze. The question had been hanging in the air for weeks, but now, it felt like the weight of it was too much to ignore. He had been avoiding it, pretending that everything was just fine. But Kate's question cut straight to the heart of it. Could he really let her in? Could he truly open himself up to her, knowing that she wasn't just a temporary fix for his loneliness but someone who could become a permanent part of his world? "I don't know," he admitted, his gaze never leaving hers. "But I want to find out. I'm not ready to let you go." Kate's heart skipped a beat at his words. She had never expected to hear him say that, not in a million years. Liam Parker, the powerful, successful CEO, the man who had built an empire from the ground up, was telling her he wanted to keep her in his life. She didn't know what the future held, but in that moment, she realized something. Maybe this wasn't just about pretending anymore. Maybe they had both been pretending for so long that they had forgotten what it felt like to be real. But now, they were standing at the edge of something new, something genuine. "I don't want to leave either," Kate said softly, her voice trembling. She reached out, her hand brushing against his. "But I need to know that this is what you really want, Liam. I need to know that you're not just doing this because you're lonely." Liam reached for her hand, his touch warm and reassuring. "I don't know what the future holds," he said, his voice steady, "but I know that I want you in it. And I know that I want you here with me. For real, Kate. No more pretending." The silence that followed was filled with the unspoken understanding between them. For the first time in a long while, Liam didn't feel the need to hide behind his wealth, his status, or his carefully constructed life. He just felt human. And for the first time, he felt ready to take a chance on love. Kate smiled, a genuine smile that reached her eyes, and for the first time since she had met Liam, she felt like she had found a place where she truly belonged, a place where she wasn't pretending anymore. "Then let's do this," she said, her voice full of hope. And with that, they both knew their lives had changed forever. The days that followed were a whirlwind of change for both Liam and Kate. They had crossed a line, stepping into unfamiliar territory where feelings were no longer confined to the safety of pretense. What began as a temporary arrangement had now become something more, something they couldn't deny. Liam had always been a man who valued control, who held the reins tightly in every aspect of his life, from business to personal matters. But with Kate, that control slipped away bit by bit. The more time he spent with her, the more he realized just how much he had missed out on. on genuine connection, on love, and on the warmth of a family that wasn't built on expectations or status. As for Kate, she had come into this situation expecting nothing more than a temporary job. But now, she found herself at the center of a life she hadn't even imagined for herself. She had come to love Sophia like a sister. And as for Liam, he wasn't just the CEO she had once thought him to be. He was more than that. He was caring, attentive, and, for the first time in a long time, vulnerable. But even with all the changes, Kate couldn't shake the feeling of uncertainty that still lingered in her heart. What if she wasn't enough for them? What if, deep down, Liam was still pretending, just like she had been at the start? These doubts followed her like a shadow, especially as she watched Sophia's joyful face light up every time she walked into the room. Liam was still the father, the protector, the man who could give his daughter everything she could ever need. What could Kate offer that could possibly compare to the life she had known before? One evening, as the two of them sat on the balcony, the city skyline stretching out before them, Liam turned to Kate with a serious expression. He had been quiet for most of the night, his thoughts drifting like the stars above. He looked at her, as if seeing her for the first time in a way that made his heart beat a little faster. "I've been thinking," he said, his voice low but steady. Kate looked at him, unsure of what he was about to say. "About what?" she asked, her own voice betraying the tension she felt inside. "About us," Liam said, his gaze never leaving hers. "About everything. I want to make this work, Kate. I want us to be a real family." Kate's heart skipped a beat. For a moment, she was speechless, her mind racing to keep up with the gravity of his words. A real family. The words felt like a promise, but also a risk. She had never imagined herself in this position, standing on the precipice of a new life, with the man she had come to care for deeply, and a little girl who had come to trust her. "Liam, Kate started, but he reached out to gently place a finger on her lips, silencing her. "I know this is complicated," he said, his eyes softening. "I know it's not going to be easy, but I'm willing to try. I want you in my life, and I want you in Sophia's life. I don't want to keep pretending that this is just some temporary thing. I want us to build something real." Kate felt a tear slip down her cheek, but it wasn't out of sadness. It was out of relief, out of the overwhelming emotion that had built up in her chest. She had never allowed herself to hope like this before, never thought that someone like Liam Parker, a man who had everything, could see her as more than just a temporary fixture in his life. "You really mean that?" she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I do," he replied, his voice firm with conviction. "I know we can do this, Kate. I know we can be happy together." For the first time in what felt like forever, Kate allowed herself to believe in the possibility of a future. A future with Liam. A future with Sophia. She wasn't just a girl who had been hired for a role anymore. She was someone who was now being given the chance to become a permanent part of their lives. As she wiped away her tear, she smiled. A small, hopeful smile that spoke volumes. "Then let's do it," she said, her heart filled with a newfound sense of certainty. Liam reached out, taking her hand in his grip warm and reassuring. "Together," he said softly, and in that moment, they both knew that whatever the future held, they would face it as a family. As the night continued, they sat together, watching the lights of the city twinkle below them, knowing that this was just the beginning of their journey. The journey of love, trust, and a future built not on pretense, but on something far stronger, the bond they shared. The next few weeks were nothing short of transformative. Kate had moved in with Liam and Sophia, and together they began to carve out a life that felt natural, despite the rocky start. The transition wasn't without its challenges, of course. Kate was still adjusting to the idea of living in a world so different from her own, but with every passing day, it felt more and more like home. The house was filled with laughter, shared moments, and a sense of warmth that had been missing for so long. Sophia, ever the curious and energetic child, had bonded with Kate in a way that made Liam's heart swell with pride. She had become more open, more expressive, and the joy she radiated was infectious. There was something magical about the way Kate could draw her out, making her feel safe and loved. As for Liam, he found himself falling deeper for Kate. He had always been guarded, keeping his emotions locked away behind walls of professionalism and control. But with Kate, he found himself letting go. He no longer felt the need to be perfect. to have everything figured out. With her, he could just be himself. But despite the progress they had made, there was still a shadow hanging over them. Kate's doubts hadn't completely disappeared, and Liam knew it. There were moments, especially in the quiet of the night, when he could see the uncertainty in her eyes. She had come into this life thinking it was all temporary, and now, with the stakes higher than ever, she wasn't sure if she truly belonged. One afternoon, as the three of them sat in the garden, enjoying a rare moment of peace, Liam could sense that something was off with Kate. She had been quieter than usual, her smile a little more forced, her eyes drifting far away. He knew he had to address it. "Kate," he said gently, breaking the silence. "What's on your mind?" Kate looked up at him, her expression softening, but there was still a trace of hesitation. "I'm just thinking," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. "About everything, about us, about how I fit into this life. I want to be here, Liam, I really do. But sometimes I can't shake the feeling that I'm not enough." Liam's heart sank. He had hoped that Kate had truly found a place with him and Sophia, but he realized that, for all the love they had shared, there were still insecurities lingering beneath the surface. He reached out, taking her hand in his grip firm but gentle. "Kate," he said, his voice steady, "you are enough. You've always been enough. What we have, what we're building, it's real. I'm not going to let you go." Kate felt a tear slip down her cheek as she looked into his eyes. The words he spoke were exactly what she needed to hear. But she still couldn't shake the fear that, one day, she would wake up and realize that she didn't belong. "But what about Sophia?" she asked, her voice trembling. "What happens when she grows up? When she doesn't need me anymore? Will I still be part of this family?" Liam's heart ached at the question, and for a moment he didn't know how to answer. He hadn't considered the long-term implications of their arrangement, but now that Kate had raised it, he realized how much it mattered. "Sophia needs you," Liam said softly, his voice thick with emotion. "She needs you now, and she'll need you as she grows. You're not just a placeholder, Kate. You're her family, and you're mine." Kate looked at him, her eyes wide with surprise. She had never expected to hear those words. She had always felt like an outsider, unsure of her place in this life that wasn't truly hers. But now, hearing Liam's words, something inside her shifted. She wasn't just pretending anymore. She wasn't just playing a role. She was a part of something real. "I want to believe that," she whispered. "I want to believe that we can make this work, that I can truly be a part of your lives." Liam smiled, the warmth in his eyes matching the tenderness of his touch. "You already are, Kate. You already are." As the days turned into weeks, Kate's fears slowly began to dissipate. She started to see the life she had always dreamed, of a life filled with love, laughter, and belonging. She wasn't just a woman who had stumbled into a rich man's world. She was someone who had earned her place there, through her kindness, her dedication, and her love for Liam and Sophia. Together, they faced the challenges of blending their lives into something whole, something meaningful. And every day, Kate grew more and more confident in the family they were becoming. The future was still uncertain, but with Liam by her side, she knew they could face anything. And so, as they sat together one evening, watching Sophia play in the yard, Kate realized that she had found her home not in the house, not in the wealth, but in the love they shared. A love that was real, a love that was theirs. As the months passed, the connection between Liam, Kate, and Sophia only deepened. The bond that had begun as an unexpected arrangement had blossomed into a true family. The house, once filled with echoes of silence, now rang with laughter, conversations, and the warmth of shared moments. Kate had become not just the woman in Liam's life, but also a mother figure to Sophia. She was there for every scraped knee, every school project, and every bedtime story. And for Liam, the man who had once seen relationships as business transactions, he found himself more and more invested in this family he had never imagined. The fears that had plagued Kate at the beginning, the doubt that she didn't belong, that she would one day be cast aside, began to fade away. She no longer felt like an outsider, someone who was just filling a temporary role. She was a permanent fixture in their lives, and with each passing day, her place in their world became more solid. But even as things felt like they were finally falling into place, There were moments when Liam couldn't help but wonder if everything was too perfect. It was one of those quiet mornings, when the sun barely touched the city, that Liam found himself sitting alone in the living room, staring out the window. The past months had been a whirlwind, and the truth was, he hadn't fully allowed himself to process how much his life had changed. His work had slowed down, he had made more time for his family, but the stress of balancing everything still weighed on him. As he looked out the window, his mind wandered back to the early days, to the time when he had hired Kate as a temporary solution to please his daughter, not knowing that she would become the most important person in his life. He hadn't expected this, hadn't expected her to change him in ways he never thought possible. He hadn't expected to love her, to need her. "Liam?" Kate's voice brought him out of his thoughts. She appeared in the doorway, her smile soft and understanding, like she knew exactly what was going on in his mind. "You okay?" she asked, walking over to him. He nodded, forcing a smile, but Kate wasn't fooled. She sat down beside him, her hand gently resting on his. "I know something's bothering you," she said quietly. "You've been distant lately. What's going on?" Liam took a deep breath, his hand tightening around hers. "I've been thinking," he started, his voice low. "I've been thinking about how much everything has changed. About how much I've changed." Kate listened carefully, her eyes softening as she heard the vulnerability in his voice. "I've been so focused on building my career, on having everything under control, that I didn't even realize I was missing out on the most important things in life: family, love, being present." He paused, looking at her with sincerity. "I never imagined I could feel this way, Kate. I never imagined I could feel like I do about you. About us. But now that I do, I'm scared. I'm scared of losing this, of losing you." Kate's heart swelled at his words. She had never seen him this open, this vulnerable. And as much as she had feared in the beginning, the uncertainty that had once held her back now seemed to be replaced with something more powerful: love. She reached out, placing a hand on his cheek, her thumb gently brushing over his skin. "Liam, you don't have to be scared," she said softly. "We're in this together. We're a family now. And no matter what happens, we'll face it together." Liam's eyes searched hers for a long moment, as if trying to find the reassurance he needed. And in that moment, he realized something. He didn't need to control everything. He didn't need to have all the answers. All he needed was Kate, Sophia, and the love they shared. He smiled, a real smile this time, full of warmth and relief. "You're right," he said, his voice steady. "We will face it together. I'm not afraid anymore." From that day on, things began to feel different, but in the best way possible. Liam started to let go of the need to control every aspect of his life. He focused more on the moments that truly mattered, spending time with Kate and Sophia, building memories that would last a lifetime. The house became a home in every sense of the word. It was filled with laughter, with shared stories, with love that had blossomed in the most unexpected of places. Kate's doubts, too, slowly melted away. She no longer feared that she wasn't enough, that she would one day be cast aside. She had found a place for herself in Liam and Sophia's world, and she knew that, together, they had built something lasting, something real. The future was no longer uncertain. They had created their own path, one that was full of love, family, and the promise of a bright tomorrow. And as they sat together one evening, watching the sunset, Kate knew that this was exactly where she was meant to be: home, with Liam, with Sophia, forever. Months passed, and the life that Kate, Liam, and Sophia had built together began to feel more like a dream come true. Kate had moved fully into Liam's world, and with each passing day, she grew more confident in her place within it. The initial doubts that had clouded her mind slowly faded, replaced by a quiet certainty. She was not just a woman in a rich man's life anymore. She was part of something far more valuable: a real family. Sophia continued to flourish under Kate's care and love. The little girl's energy was infectious, and her happiness seemed to light up the entire house. Liam found himself more connected to her and to Kate than he ever imagined possible. Their days were filled with moments that felt simple but profound: dinner together, lazy mornings spent reading or playing, and the kind of laughter that could only come from being surrounded by people you love. But as perfect as their lives seemed, a sudden change was about to throw them into uncharted waters. It started with a phone call. Liam was sitting at his desk, reviewing some contracts when his assistant, Claire, knocked gently on the door. "Mr. Parker," she said, her voice soft but urgent. "There's someone here to see you." Liam raised an eyebrow, unsure of who it could be. "Who is it?" he asked. "A lawyer," Claire replied, her voice slightly strained. "He says it's urgent." Liam's heart sank a little at the mention of a lawyer. His mind raced, trying to make sense of why someone would come to him with legal matters. He stood up and straightened his tie before walking out of his office to meet the stranger. The man waiting for him was middle-aged, dressed in a sharp suit, and his expression was serious. "Mr. Parker?" the man asked, extending his hand. "I'm Andrew Hale. I represent the estate of your late father." The words hit Liam like a ton of bricks. He had not spoken to his father in years, their relationship strained beyond repair. His father had been a cold, distant man, more interested in his own wealth and power than in being a father. Liam had long since stopped trying to repair the relationship. "What is this about?" Liam asked, his voice tense. Andrew Hale handed him a file, his face unreadable. "I'm afraid your father left behind some significant financial matters that need your attention. There's an inheritance, but it comes with certain conditions." The word inheritance hung in the air, and Liam felt a knot form in his stomach. He had no interest in anything his father had left behind, but there was a part of him that knew he couldn't ignore this. As he flipped through the pages of the file, the details became clear. His father had left him an estate, a significant portion of his wealth, but with one condition. He had to marry within a certain time frame and prove his ability to run the business his father had built. It was an ultimatum, one that felt strangely familiar, a demand for control, just like the one his father had always exerted over him. Liam sat down at his desk, rubbing his temples. He hadn't expected this. The last thing he wanted was to be tied to the past, to the expectations of a man who had never truly cared for him. He looked at the file again, his mind spinning. "You have 1 year to comply," Andrew Hale said, breaking through Liam's thoughts. "If not, the estate will be transferred elsewhere." Liam's mind raced. He didn't want the inheritance, didn't want any part of his father's legacy. But as he sat there, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was a challenge he couldn't avoid. He thought about Kate, about the life they had built together. He thought about Sophia, about the family they had become. He couldn't let anything tear that apart. He picked up the phone and dialed Kate's number. She answered on the first ring. "Liam?" she asked, her voice full of concern. "What's going on?" "I need you to come home," Liam said, his voice strained. "I just got some news, and we need to talk." Kate didn't hesitate. "I'll be there in 10 minutes, she said. When Kate arrived, she found Liam sitting on the couch, his face pale, his expression unreadable. "Liam, what's happened?" she asked, sitting beside him. He handed her the file without saying a word. As she read the documents, her eyes widened with surprise. "So, your father left you all this, with a condition?" she asked, looking up at him. "Yes," Liam replied, his voice thick with frustration. "But I don't want it. I don't want anything to do with him or his legacy." Kate placed the file down and took his hand. "But what if it could give us a future? What if this is the opportunity you've been waiting for, Liam?" Liam looked at her, his heart heavy. "I never wanted this kind of life," he said. "But if this is what it takes to protect what we have, to protect you and Sophia, then maybe I have no choice." Kate squeezed his hand, offering him a reassuring smile. "We'll figure it out together. Whatever happens, we'll face it as a family." And in that moment, Liam realized that no matter what challenges lay ahead, he wasn't alone. He had Kate, Sophia, and the love they shared. And together, they could overcome anything. The days that followed were filled with countless conversations, decisions, and moments that tested Liam and Kate's resolve. The weight of his father's inheritance hung over them like a shadow. But it became clear that this challenge was no longer just about money. It was about protecting the life they had built. It wasn't just about the business or the inheritance. It was about the future of their family, and Liam knew he couldn't do it alone. Kate stood by him every step of the way, her unwavering support providing him with the strength he needed to face the daunting task ahead. Together, they began to devise a plan. Kate, with her practical approach to life, suggested they take the time to truly understand the business side of things. If they were going to accept the inheritance and move forward, they needed to be prepared. Liam knew she was right. For the first time in his life, he wasn't thinking about the world of wealth and business in the same way. It wasn't just about being the best anymore. It was about being the best for Sophia, for Kate, and for himself. They spent countless hours poring over documents, meeting with financial advisors, and navigating the maze of legal obligations that came with his father's estate. But through it all, Liam felt a sense of peace he hadn't experienced before. This wasn't the cold, impersonal world of business he had once known. This was a chance to shape the future on his own terms. As the months passed, Kate and Liam grew closer. Their partnership had evolved into something deeper, something stronger. Liam no longer saw Kate as just a woman he had hired to fulfill a role. She was his equal, his partner in every sense of the word. Together, they were building not just a family, but a future one, where love, trust, and commitment were the foundation. The day they signed the final documents, officially accepting the inheritance and the responsibilities that came with it, felt like a turning point. It was more than just a legal matter, it was a symbol of their determination to build something real and lasting. Sophia, too, had blossomed in this new chapter of their lives. She had become even more connected to both Liam and Kate, and it was clear that the love between them was more than enough to overcome any obstacle. One evening, as they sat down to dinner, Sophia asked a question that would forever define their journey together. "Mom, Dad," she said, looking up at them with wide, curious eyes, "are we really a family now?" The question hit Liam and Kate at the same time. They exchanged a glance, both of them realizing how far they had come. It wasn't just about sharing a home or a name, it was about the love that bound them, the trust they had built, and the promise they had made to each other. "Yes, sweetheart," Kate said, her voice full of warmth and certainty. "We're a family." Liam smiled, his heart swelling with pride. "Always," he added. The three of them shared a quiet moment, the weight of their journey finally sinking in. They had come through the challenges, the doubts, and the fears, and they had emerged stronger than ever. It wasn't the life Liam had imagined for himself, but it was one he wouldn't trade for anything. He had learned that family wasn't just something you were born into, it was something you built, something you chose every single day. As they finished their meal and laughed together, Liam realized that he had everything he ever needed right here, right now. Love, family, and a future that was theirs to create. And that was all he had ever truly wanted. The road ahead would still have its challenges, but Liam knew they could face anything, as long as they were together. And with that thought, they finished their dinner, content in the knowledge that their journey was just beginning. It wasn't perfect, but it was real. And that was enough.